Imagine a universe that has already ended 4 times. 4 whole worlds, each with its own sun, each raised in hope, each torn down in ruin. The first was eaten by jaguars in the dark. The second was scattered by a screaming wind. The third burned in a rain of fire. The fourth drowned beneath a flood so total that the people who survived were turned into fish. Every time, the sky went black. Every time, the gods began again. Now picture the fifth, our world. A sun that does not simply rise, but must be carried, coaxed, and fed to keep moving across the sky. Picture a serpent covered in feathers who descended into the land of the dead to steal back human bones. Picture a mirror of black glass that shows a man his own doom. Picture a mountain where a goddess of snakes gives birth to a warrior already dressed for war, and a moon flung into the heavens in pieces. These are the gods of the Aztecs and their Mesoamerican kin. Not distant idols, but living forces holding a fragile cosmos together against the constant threat of collapse. They demanded reciprocity. They kept careful time. They ruled a universe where creation and destruction were 2 halves of a single turning wheel. By the end of this video, you will know every god who ruled the fifth sun, from the dual creator at the beginning to the flayed lord of the harvest. You will cross the 9 cold rivers of the underworld, climb the pyramid of the war sun, and follow the feathered serpent from Mexico into the forests of the Maya. So step out of our world and into theirs, into a cosmos already broken 4 times over, and learn the names that once moved the sun itself. The Aztecs believed time itself was fragile. Their universe had passed through a sequence of ages they called the 5 suns, each ruled by a different god. Each sun was an experiment. A world was made filled with beings and set beneath a burning eye in the sky, and each time that world failed. The first sun was HUITZILOPOCHTLI, 4 jaguar. Its people were giants, and when the age ended, jaguars poured out of the night and devoured them whole. The second sun was MICTLANTECUHTLI, 4 wind. A great hurricane swept the earth clean. The survivors, it was said, were transformed into monkeys clinging to the trees. The third sun was MICTLANTECUHTLI, 4 rain. But the rain was fire. Burning ash fell from the heavens until the world was reduced to cinders. The fourth sun was MICTLANTECUHTLI, 4 water. A flood swallowed everything for 52 years, and the drowning people were turned into fish beneath the waves. 4 worlds, 4 suns, 4 endings, jaguar, wind, fire, and water. The gods watched each creation crumble, and still they refused to leave the cosmos dark. So they gathered in the ruins of the 4th world, in the sacred city of Teotihuacan, and asked the terrible question, who would become the next sun? 2 gods stepped forward, a proud, wealthy god, and a small, sickly, scab-covered one named Nanahuatzin. Both would have to leap into a roaring fire. The proud god hesitated at the flames 4 times and lost his nerve. But the humble Nanahuatzin closed his eyes and threw himself into the blaze without pausing. He rose as the 5th sun, Nahuiolan, 4 movement, and this is the crucial truth of the Aztec world. We now live inside the 5th Tri, the borrowed age. But before the suns, before the sacrifice, before any of it, there was only a single source. A god that was both 1 and 2 at the same time. The Aztecs called this the OMETEOTL, the dual god, the lord of duality. It existed at the very top of the heavens, in a place beyond all other places. It had 2 faces and 2 names. OMETEOTL, the Lord of Duality, and OMETEOTL, the Lady of Duality. Male and female joined in one being. From this union came everything. The OMETEOTL was too vast and abstract to have temples of its own, yet it was the root from which all other gods grew. This is the Aztec first principle, not a lonely creator on a throne, but a balance, a pairing, a tension between opposites out of which all reality unfolds. The dual god had 4 children, and these 4 sons would do the real work of building and destroying worlds. They are known as the 4 TEZCATLIPOCAS. Each was assigned a direction and a color. Together they formed the framework of the cosmos, a great cross laid across creation with a god standing at every point. Black to the north, white to the west, blue to the south, and red to the east. 4 brothers, 4 colors, 4 corners of a fragile world. First came the black TEZCATLIPOCA, and in truth he lent his name to all 4. TEZCATLIPOCA means smoking mirror, and he was the darkest and most powerful of the gods. He was the god of the night sky, of the jaguar, of sorcery, memory, and time. He carried an obsidian mirror wreathed in smoke where his foot should have been. In that black mirror he saw all things. He watched humankind in secret, and he could read every deed and every hidden thought done under cover of darkness. He was the great trickster, capricious and unknowable. He gave kings their power and could take it away on a whim. He was fate itself, arbitrary and absolute. His title was XIPE, the enemy. He was called He Whose Slaves We Are, for no mortal could bargain with him or predict which way his favor would turn. Each year a young man was chosen to live as TEZCATLIPOCA on earth, honored as the living god for a full year before offering himself back to the cosmos. Opposite him in the west stood his great rival and mirror, the white TEZCATLIPOCA. But the world knows him by a far more famous name, QUETZALCOATL, the feathered serpent. A snake sheathed in the shimmering green plumes of the Quetzal bird, earthbound serpent and soaring bird fused into a single impossible creature. He was the god of wind and wisdom, of the morning star, of learning, of the priesthood and the calendar. Where TEZCATLIPOCA was chaos, QUETZALCOATL was order and light. As the wind god, he took a separate aspect and a separate name, XIPE. In this form, he wore a red mask shaped like a beak and blew the winds that swept the sky. Round temples were raised to XIPE, curved so the wind could flow around them without obstruction. He was the breath that pushed the rain clouds and cleared the road for the gods. But QUETZALCOATL's greatest deed was the creation of us. When the 5th world was ready, it had no people, only the bones of those who died in the ages before. So QUETZALCOATL descended into Mictlan, the underworld, to the throne of the death god, and asked for the precious bones of the ancestors to make humanity anew. The Lord of the Dead agreed, but set a trick. QUETZALCOATL must circle the underworld 4 times, blowing a conch trumpet, though the conch he was given had no holes. QUETZALCOATL called on the worms to bore holes in the shell, and on the bees to fly inside and make it sing. The trumpet sounded, and he seized the bones. He fled with them to the surface. He ground the bones into meal and let his own blood fall upon them, and from that mixture the people of the 5th son were born. Here we must pause on a great confusion. QUETZALCOATL the god must never be mistaken for QUETZALCOATL, the man, a legendary Toltec priest-king who took the deity's name. That ruler of the city of Tula was later remembered as a wise, bearded king who fell into disgrace and sailed east, promising to return. The two are separate. The god came first. Now to the south stood the blue TEZCATLIPOCA, and he was the god who ruled the Aztecs above all others. His name was HUITZILOPOCHTLI, the hummingbird of the south. He was the god of the sun and of war, the fierce patron of the Mexica people, the divine force that led them on their long migration to found their capital. His birth is one of the great myths of the Aztec world, and it took place on a sacred mountain called QUETZALCOATL, the Hill of Serpents. There lived the earth goddess COATLICUE, she of the serpent skirt. Her clothing was woven of writhing snakes, and around her neck she wore a garland of hearts and hands and a skull. She was the devouring earth and the fertile earth at once, the womb that gives life and the grave that takes it back. She was mother to a great host of divine children. One day, as COATLICUE swept the temple on Coatepec, a ball of soft feathers drifted down from the sky. She tucked it into her waistband, and at once she was with child. Her existing children were enraged. Her daughter QUETZALCOATL, the moon goddess, and her 400 sons, the Huitzinahua, believed their mother had shamed them. They resolved to kill her. QUETZALCOATL led her 400 brothers, the countless stars of the southern sky, in an armed march up the sacred mountain to destroy their pregnant mother. But from within the womb, the unborn HUITZILOPOCHTLI spoke and told his mother not to fear. And as the attackers reached the summit, he was born, fully grown and armored for war. He wielded the QUETZALCOATL, the fire serpent, a weapon of pure solar flame. With it he struck down his sister QUETZALCOATL and cut her body apart at the mountaintop. Her dismembered form tumbled down the slope of Coatepec and rose into the sky as the moon, forever falling before the rising sun. Then he scattered the 400 stars. This was no mere family quarrel. It was the sunrise itself, retold as myth. Every dawn, the sun god is born again and drives the moon and stars from the sky. The great temple of Tenochtitlan was built as this very mountain. At its foot lay a great carved disk of the shattered QUETZALCOATL, so the war sun forever triumphed above her. The fourth brother, the red TEZCATLIPOCA of the east, was among the strangest and most misunderstood gods of the Pantheon. His name was XIPE TOTEC, our Lord the Flayed One. He was the god of spring, of new growth, of goldsmiths and renewal. His symbolism drew on the way a seed sheds its dry husk, and the way the earth puts on fresh green each year. His imagery is startling, a figure wearing a new golden skin, but its meaning is regeneration. Just as the land discards the old to reveal the new, so life is renewed each season. He was honored in the springtime festival of renewal, wrapped in gold and jewels, a lord of the harvest promising that the dry, dead earth would burst green again. Beyond the four brothers stretched a vast company of nature gods, and the oldest and most vital of them all was the god who held the rain in his hands, TLALOC, he who makes things sprout. His face was ancient, with great round goggle eyes and long fangs, worshipped in these lands for centuries before the Aztecs ever rose. He ruled the rain, the lightning, and the mountain tops where the storm clouds gathered. In his 4 great jars he kept the rains, and from them poured either abundance or ruin. He commanded an army of small helpers, the TLALOC, who shattered his jars over the mountains to make the thunder and the downpour that fed the maize below. Those chosen by TLALOC did not go to the underworld. They passed instead to TLALOCAN, a green paradise of endless spring, flowing water, and heavy fruit, free from all want. At his side stood his sister and wife, QUETZALCOATLICUE, she of the jade skirt. She ruled the waters of the earth, the lakes and rivers, springs and streams. She was the patroness of birth and of new life carried on water, but she could also drown. It was she who had ruled and ended the fourth sun beneath its great flood. And above them all burned Tonatiuh, the fifth sun made a god. He was the sun as we know it, the warrior in the sky, the eagle who climbs the heavens. But Tonatiuh was not a gift freely given. Remember Nana Watson, who leapt into the fire to become the sun. When he rose, at first he refused to move. The newborn sun hung motionless on the horizon and demanded payment. He would not cross the sky, he would not bring the day, unless the gods themselves gave up their strength to him. So the gods offered their own essence to set the sun in motion. And from that first cosmic act came the great obligation that shaped Aztec life. The sun must be fed. This is the heart of Aztec religion, and it is often misunderstood. They did not see offering as cruelty, but as reciprocity, a sacred debt owed to the powers that keep the world alive. The gods had spilled themselves to make the sun move and the rain fall. Humanity, in turn, owed a return, a repayment of vital energy to sustain a cosmos always on the edge of stopping. Every sunrise was a victory that could not be assumed. The sun fought its way across the sky and down through the dark, and only nourishment could guarantee it climbed again. So offerings were a duty, a form of cosmic maintenance. Blood was understood as the most precious substance, the concentrated life force that the gods had first given to make the world. Even the gods gave of themselves. In the myths, Quetzalcoatl let his own blood fall to bring humanity to life. The principle ran through everything. Life is sustained by sacrifice freely returned. Whatever we make of it now, to the Aztecs this was not horror but responsibility. They believed they carried the unimaginable weight of holding up the sky, one dawn at a time. But not every soul rose to feed the sun or rest in TLALOC's paradise. Most of the dead went down into the cold and quiet realm beneath the earth. That realm was Mictlan, the underworld, and it was ruled by a fearsome pair enthroned in the deepest dark, MICTLANTECUHTLI and his wife, MICTLANTECUHTLI. MICTLANTECUHTLI, the lord of the land of the dead, was pictured as a skeleton or a body spotted with decay, his skull grinning, his necklace strung with human eyes. Beside him ruled MICTLANTECUHTLI, the lady of the dead, the queen of Mictlan, who guarded the bones of the departed and presided over the festivals held in their honor. Mictlan had 9 levels, and the journey down through them took 4 long years. It was not a punishment, but a passage, a slow undoing of the self on the way to rest. The dead crossed wide plains, climbed between clashing mountains, and endured a wind sharp as knives of obsidian. For each trial they carried the offerings buried with them. At the final crossing lay a wide black river, and to cross it the soul needed a guide, a small red dog who carried its master over the water to the far shore. Only there, in the 9th and deepest level, did the journey end. The soul reached Mictlan itself, and its wandering finally, quietly, ceased. It simply came to rest. It was from this cold kingdom that Quetzalcoatl once stole the bones of the ancestors. The dead were not gone forever. Their remains became the raw material of new life above. This is the great rhythm of the Aztec cosmos. The living feed the sun, the dead descend to Mictlan, and from the underworld's bones new humanity is shaped again. Yet this was not a world only of war and death. The Aztecs also worshipped joy and beauty and the fleeting sweetness of being alive under the 5th sun. Xochipilli was the flower prince, the young god of art, of song and dance, of games, of pleasure and love. He wore blossoms and butterflies, a god of everything beautiful. Beside him stood Xochiquetzal, the flower feather, goddess of love, of desire and flowers, of weaving and craft, forever young, surrounded by butterflies and singing birds. Together they remind us that the same people who bore the weight of the sky also treasured poetry and flowers, and knew that beauty, like the sun, was precious because it was brief. Now we leave the highlands of the Aztecs and travel south and east into the humid forests of the Yucatan, into the world of another great people, the Maya. Here is a crucial distinction. The Aztecs and the Maya were not the same. They spoke different languages, rose in different eras, and worshipped their own gods, though they shared a common well of belief. The Maya were the great astronomers and mathematicians of Mesoamerica, keepers of an intricate calendar whose sacred book, the Popol Vuh, preserves one of the world's oldest creation stories. At the head of the Maya pantheon stood Itzamna, the aged creator god, lord of the sky, of writing, of medicine and wisdom. He was the inventor of the calendar itself, and crossing between the cultures came a familiar shape, a serpent robed in feathers. The Maya called him Kukulkan, and among the later Toltec Maya, Gukumats, the feathered serpent once more. But Kukulkan is not simply Quetzalcoatl renamed. He is a related, parallel figure, born of the same deep Mesoamerican idea, sky and earth joined, wisdom crowned in green plumes. At Chichen Itza his great pyramid was built so that twice a year, at the equinox, sunlight cast a shadow of a serpent slithering down the steps to the earth. The Maya rain god was Chak, wielder of lightning, who struck the clouds with his stone axe to release the storms. Like TLALOC, he had a long curling nose and ruled the harvest's fate. Ixia was the goddess of the moon, of childbirth, weaving, and medicine, an old woman and a young woman at once, patroness of the healers and midwives of the Maya world. And Kinish-Aha was the sun god, the blazing face of day, who was said to descend each night into the underworld and pass through it as a jaguar before rising again. That underworld was Xibalba, the place of fright, and it is the stage for the greatest story the Maya ever told, the tale of the hero twins in the Popol Vuh. It began with an earlier pair, Hunhunapu, and his brother, who angered the lords of Xibalba with the noise of their ball game, and were summoned down to the underworld. There the Death Lords tricked and defeated them, and hung the severed head of Hunhunapu in a barren calabash tree, where it caused the dead tree to bloom with fruit. A maiden of Xibalba, Blood Moon, came to the tree in wonder. The skull spat into her open hand, and by that touch she conceived. She fled to the world above. There she gave birth to the hero twins, Hunapu and Xbalanque. They grew clever and brave, masters of the ball game like their father, and in time the lords of death summoned them too. But these twins were cunning. They survived the houses of terror, the house of knives, the house of cold, the house of jaguars, outwitting every trap the Death Lords set. At last, by trickery, they let themselves seem to die, then returned in disguise, performing wonders, until they lured the two great lords of Xibalba to their own defeat. Their father was honored as the maize god, whose death and rebirth mirror the corn that is buried, sprouts, and rises, and the twins themselves climbed into the sky as the sun and the moon. Across both peoples the pattern is the same. Time moves in cycles. Worlds end and begin again. The corn dies and returns. The sun sets into darkness and fights its way back to dawn. Life is bound to death in an endless exchange. Nothing is given for free. The cosmos runs on reciprocity, on the return of energy to the powers that first gave it. And gliding through it all is that one great shared symbol, the serpent robed in feathers, Quetzalcoatl in the highlands, Kukulkan in the forest. Earth and sky, wisdom and wind, joined in one form. These were the gods who ruled the fifth sun and the age of maize, the dual creator and the flayed lord, the war sun and the feathered serpent. Broken worlds, borrowed time, and the fragile, blazing dawn they fought each day to keep.